This edition of KTN Friday Briefing. What a great pleasure having your company tonight as we wind up yet another week, trusting that you've had a great day. If not, we'll try and make it a little bit better right here on KTN Friday Briefing. My name is Betty Kallo. Tonight we have the latest coming in from across the country, but also on our unrivaled segment of the guest anchor, we have a special appearance by the one and only Pastor Julian Chula. Thank you so much for coming.
Hi, Betty.
Why do Africans always say hi when they meet up?
I don't know.
It's an African thing and we like it.
Yeah, we love it.
All right, say hi.
Good evening, viewers.
Right, so he is our guest anchor. We know that he can preach, that's for sure. We know that he can lead a company. You have 200 million customers.
Yeah.
Wow, and he's going to be telling us more about that. Also how he dropped out of college and still rose up to where he is now. All that coming up in a short while, right?
That's right.
All right, and we'll also get to see if he can read the news.
Yeah.
You're
Let's see
nervous?
if that's possible. I'm not nervous.
You're
I'm
not nervous. All right,
but I hope they can slow down the...
Okay,
yeah.
we'll take it slow. Right, let's begin this and let's take a look at the highlights.
But I was surprised that my young brother, Raila, was attacking the sugar deal. Oh, my dear Raila, I would have to ring him and say...
I have the evidence in writing to prove that they owe those farmers.
Museveni attacks Raila for criticizing the controversial sugar deal.
Bwana Aden anasema hakuna kitu. Amina anasema hakuna sahihi.
Rolling back Jubilee's carpet, CORD now camps in Western Sugar Belt. Saved from life in prison, 25 soldiers win appeal in desertion case. And free at last, embattled Pastor Nganga released on bond.
Thank you for joining us. Our sign language interpreter is William Silla. Now, celebrations rent the air at the High Court in Mombasa today as 25 soldiers who had been slapped with life imprisonment were set free. Well, the court-martial had committed the ex-Kenyan Navy soldiers to life in prison for deserting duty. KTN's Coast reporter Francis Ontomwa now tells us why the prosecution found itself gnashing teeth in the courtroom.
The upshot is that all the appellants in the criminal appeals now before this court are set at liberty forthwith unless otherwise lawfully held.
The declaration that will send the court into a frenzy, one that friends and relatives of the ex-soldiers waited with bated breath. To some, it became a moment of meditation for their kinsmen who had languished behind bars at the Shimolatewa prison for more than 18 months.
My Lord, this court has found that the offense of desertion while on active service was not proved beyond reasonable doubt.
Anxiety and tension was clear among those who followed the proceedings as lawyers from both the defense and prosecution rolled their sleeves in the face-off.
Yes, my Lord. We just want to lay a basis for the state because we need to demonstrate we have an arguable appeal.
So, well, even the question of security, these 25 people who are in this court are not in any way compromising or negating for the security of the state at all.
But just how did the men of the military find themselves locked up behind bars? The story goes back to the year 2007 and 2008 when they allegedly deserted duty to work with U.S. security firms in Iraq, Afghanistan and Kuwait. At the time, the country was in full-blown war in Somalia, and upon their return in 2013, their seniors allegedly set them up before a military court. They were slapped with life imprisonment, something that they challenged in civilian courts.
We have gone through a process where the 25 persons have been punished or are being punished, like they were being punished, Your Honor, because of a process that sent them to Shimolatewa.
Through their lawyers, the soldiers countered the accusations, insisting that Kenya wasn't in any war at the time of quitting, They also stated that they had been wrongly convicted under the Kenya Defence Forces Act 2010 that had not been fully enacted at the time. In the final determination, Justice Muya suppressed earlier charges of life imprisonment by court-martial and substituted the charge with absenteeism from duty without leave. He argued that this had, however, been whitewashed by period they lasted in remand.
Honorable Justice Muya, having listened carefully to all the arguments, delivered what we consider to be a proper judgment in the circumstances of the case.
I thank God for what has happened today. We have seen the hand of God, and I praise the judge who has delivered the judgment.
The prosecution's prayers to have interim orders of stay for the 25 was rejected, even as they stuck to their line of argument that the judgment was bound to create loopholes for indiscipline in the force and failed to deter others from ditching the service. The 25 were later taken back to Shimo-Latewa prison as procedures commenced on their release. In the history of the Kenyan judiciary, today's judgment will perhaps go down the annals of history as the 25 ex-soldiers escaped the guillotine and now walk scot-free back home. Francis Otomwa, KTN News at the Mombasa Law Courts.
Thank you, Francis. Now the work begins for my guest anchor tonight. Take it away.
Another person celebrating freedom from jail today is the Kenyan embattled Pastor James Ng'ang'a.
Well, he was released on bond by the Limuru court 2 days after being arrested on charges of causing death by dangerous driving and failing to report an accident.
Timothy Otieno was at the Limuru court.
The tension inside the courtroom was thick, and so was the crowd outside. Hundreds of Limuru residents turned up, perhaps hoping they would get a glimpse of the proceedings inside. But authorities here were not taking any chances. Only authorized persons were allowed inside the courtroom, and even though not as many were in attendance today as were on Friday, the courtroom still filled to capacity. It was the second day the man of God was in the dock, and attention quickly shifted to the resident magistrate Timothy Oletanchu. And shortly before 1 p.m., his decision as to whether Pastor Ng'ang'a, the key suspect in a fatal car crash, and 3 others would be released on bail was read.
The first accused, therefore, shall be admitted to bond in terms which I will set shortly.
The court ruled that the prosecution had not given compelling reasons to continue locking up the suspects. Ng'ang'a was released on a bond of 1 million shillings and a surety of a similar amount, or a bail of 500,000 Kenya shillings. His 3 co-accused, Simon Kuria, Christopher Nzioka and Patrick Bayer, were also released on a bond of 100,000 shillings, or a bail amounting to 50,000 shillings each. The prosecution's plea to have him detained did not hold water, according to the magistrate. But the proceedings took a different trajectory after the prosecution requested the court to allow police extract a blood sample from the evangelist.
Can they even show you that they recovered any blood or anything else that they want to compare?
Samples his defense team termed as irrelevant to the case. According to them, Ng'ang'a had no body wounds because he was not involved in a car crash. But the prosecution are baying for Ng'ang'a's blood quite literally. They insist the samples must be compared to those found at the crash site. The magistrate said the matter would be heard next week. Outside, news about Ng'ang'a's release had spread and the crowd remained agitated. He was quickly whisked away at around 5 p.m, but his defense lawyer says they are confident the cleric will be found innocent.
I can guarantee you that Pastor Ng'ang'a will be present. He's not going to abscond. He's ready to stand trial. He has been cooperating with the police. And it's a matter that he really wants to put to rest.
Now, with the payment of the 1 million shilling bond by Apostle James Ng'ang'a virtually guaranteeing that he will not have to spend another night under police custody, he will, however, have to appear before the Limuru Law Courts next week Wednesday for a mention in a case that has the entire nation watching and waiting. Timothy Otieno, KTN News, Limuru, Kiambu County.
Now we will be going back to Maina Ng'ang'a's tribulations, but for now our top story tonight, Ugandan President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni has hit out at Kenyan opposition leader Raila Odinga over his criticism of the sugar agreement struck between Uganda and Kenya. Museveni told the East African Legislative Assembly meeting in Kampala, Uganda, that Odinga's remarks are diversionary and therefore should be neglected. Museveni spoke as the Kenyan National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale claimed that he has evidence showing CORD leaders who owe sugar companies lots of money. KTN Samogina has the details.
He played host to President Uhuru Kenyatta during his 3-day state visit to Uganda. The ripple effect of the visit was a trade agreement for Uganda to export its surplus sugar to the Kenyan market for exchange of beef and milk. A move that sparked acrimony with the opposition in Kenya, lighting embers against the deal. The spat is now dragged in Uganda. While Kenyan opposition claims the trade deal amounts to economic sabotage, the Ugandan president says Kenya's opposition chiefs are against the principles of the East African Common Markets Protocol.
But I was surprised that my young brother Raila was attacking the sugar deal. Oh, my dear Raila, I would have to ring him and say, please, 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 don't waste our time. Sugar of Uganda should go to Kenya without any hindrance, as the Kenyan goods are coming to Uganda without any hindrance.
Despite the noise and the boycott threats by the opposition claiming the Kenya-Uganda deal was skewed to benefit a few individuals, the Ugandan president is rallying the East African Community member states to back Kampala's cause in fostering regional trade.
We should not waste time with the mediation, with the talks, with the negotiation. What are we negotiating? It is clear that that's what East Africa needs. And there's nobody who will lose.
President Museveni made the remarks at the opening of the first meeting of the 4th session of the 3rd East African Legislative Assembly, IALA. Regional representatives at the session sided with Museveni to isolate Kenya's opposition voices on the trade agreement.
It was better to get sugar from Uganda here than to go all the way to Brazil and get sugar from the same. So I don't see. That is just is the opposition trying to get occupied.
The sugar deal is among East Africans in accordance with the agreed common market protocol. Those who are protesting that are either ignorant or they are just being politically divisive. They do not wish East Africans to integrate.
Back in Nairobi, National Assembly Majority Leader Aden Duale was daring the opposition on the sugar spat.
And I told him, you either have two options, you and your leader, either to take the check to the poor farmers of Mumia, or you take them a repayment schedule on how in the next 10 years you're going to pay. And Your Excellency, I want to confirm today that if they don't take the check today to Mumias, already in my office, I have the evidence in writing to prove that they owe those farmers, and that a lawyer has written to them and their companies a demand note in May 2014.
Despite the heat generated by the sugar deal and the CORD's vocal opposition, Duale urged the state to ignore the pronounced rebellion, saying Jubilee MPs will square it out with CORD on the sugar face-off.
Now, the CORD leader Raila Odinga has also hit back at the Jubilee government, claiming the Jubilee leaders were playing with the minds of Kenyans over the sugar deal. While CORD began their tour of the western Kenyan sugar belt with rallies in Busia and Chemelil.
CORD first touched base at Busia Polytechnic grounds and began their own charm offensive with very strong accusations.
Uchumi wetu umalizwe ilhali tunadanganywa ya kwamba tunasaidia wamekuja hapa Mumias wanadanganya ya kwamba wanaleta pesa, na baada ya wiki mbili wanaenda kule Uganda, wanaenda kusema ya kwamba sukari ya bei ya chini ingia hapa Kenya. Hiyo ni uongo ama ukweli?
Don't want someone who is still asking us in this dispensation that MPs should go to State House to beg him for goodies. Money for development should be with Ojamong here. Sawa sawa.
Hardly has the dust of the Deputy President's visit settled, and CORD sought to counter the government's narrative in the larger sugar belt, the itinerary to Nambale, Muhoroni, Chemelil and Nandi.
Natetea mafukara. Mimi nina jukumu ya kutetea wote ambao wako maskini. Kama ya biashara ya watu binafsi, unaandika ati Kenya na Uganda. Itakuwa kama Museveni na Uhuru, inakuwa Kenya na Uganda.
Busia leaders allied to CORD, some who are also present in the DP's tour, rallied behind Odinga.
Uganda is sugar insufficient. We know it. If they don't know, let them sit down, we teach them these simple facts. Sasa nchi ambayo haiwezi kujitosheleza mahitaji yake ya sukari, itawezaje kutosheleza sisi mahitaji yetu? Siwe ni upusi.
Kama area hii ya miwa, hii area ya miwa, adui wetu na yule ambayo anaharibu ukulima wa miwa.
Hapa Busia ni ngome ya ODM, mnasikia? Si waliniuliza ndio niweke serikali yangu alafu niingie Jubilee. Si nilikataza hawa. There is no way I can abandon my people. Niache watu ya Busia ambao wote wako kwa ODM.
CORD continues to cry wolf and economic sabotage in their perceived strongholds. Western leaders say their people are not for sale for leaders who come here in the name of Harambes. But who is fooling who in this saga of contradiction?
Haikuwekwa sahihi. Atakuna mtu ameweka. Bwana Aden anasema hakuna kitu. Amina anasema hakuna sahihi. Ni namna gani?
Vile wamehesabu kweli serikali inajaribu kumaliza economy ya Western.
Maisha ya Uganda ni rahisi kushinda maisha ya Kenya. Sukari Uganda ni bei rahisi na Kenya ni bei kali.
Deal or no deal, there is still foreign sugar in Kenyan markets. The devil in the detail of the said agreement is what most people want to know. The same people who receive the government receive the opposition as the sugar industry continues to ail. Dorcas Wangira, KTN News, Busia.
Now, officers from the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission have arrested a magistrate and a court clerk at the Kericho Law Courts for allegedly receiving bribes. The two were apprehended after a trap set by the anti-corruption officers.
Kericho Magistrate Judith Nyakol and Court Clerk Robert Cheriot allegedly received 10,000 shillings as a bribe from a second-generation brew dealer whose case was before the court to the effect that he was fined 5,000 shillings and freed. Sources allege the magistrate fled from her office upon getting wind of the impending arrest, but later surrendered herself to the officers at Kericho Police Station, where she was interrogated. 10,000 shillings was recovered from her handbag and 1,000 shilling notes whose serial numbers corresponded with cash that was being used by the EACC officers to set the trap. The court clerk was also arrested after being found in possession of the same notes. This was confirmed by the EACC officers.
PH7040. The clerk was found with the money, but the magistrate was found with the money which is not known how much. The clerk was found with 10,000 shillings in the pocket, but the magistrate, the amount is not yet known. So the investigation is still going on by the anti-corruption team, and when it is complete is when we shall have to know what action they are going to take against them.
Kericho County Police Commander Rose Muchuma confirmed the arrest, adding that the two were grilled by the EACC officers at the police station. The two will be arraigned in a Nakuru court next week. Trix Ingado, KTN News.
Now let's go to the Kenyan northern part, where the government is moving to fill the gap in teaching staff in schools. KTN's Fatma Pole was there, and she found out that the situation is so desperate that school children have been teaching themselves to ensure they keep preparing for the upcoming national exams. Here's that report.
Schools in the northeastern part of the country have become playing grounds. This after non-local teachers fled the region citing insecurity reasons. As a result, most schools have had to close down. But in the few that are still open, students have had to improvise ways to ensure that they too get education like their counterparts across the country.
I'm very happy because I'm assisting my fellow brothers and sisters. I just teach the mathematics, science and social studies.
It is a sad reality here at the Hara Primary School, one of the best performing schools in Garissa County. Students still come to school hoping against hope that things might change. The child from the northeastern part of the country has always been underprivileged, but this newest challenge of the lack of teachers has hit them hard.
Mandera ni Kenya! Kenya!
The situation has prompted a public outcry from locals and leaders from this region. Late last month, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor Jacob Kaimenyi said the best solution to tackle the crisis would be to postpone the national examinations for the Form 4 and Class 8 students. But this too has been received with mixed reactions. Now the ministry has reversed that decision after much outcry from the region. But rather than go out and play, these students have resorted to teaching themselves because they realize that when it's time to sit their KCPE examinations, they need to compete with the rest of the students across the country.
We are going to do the same KCPE with my fellow Kenyans, and we are not happy for that.
President Uhuru and Deputy President Ruto have betrayed us, we people of Northeastern Province, because they failed to secure our security and at the same time failed to secure our rights to education.
It's the government's responsibility to ensure the right of every child to free and compulsory basic education. It's supposed to ensure that the children belonging to marginalized, vulnerable and disadvantaged groups are not discriminated against and prevented from pursuing and completing basic education.
And the light at the end of the tunnel.
To manage the challenge that currently exists of absence of teachers in schools, the Ministry of Education will work with the boards of management of both primary and secondary schools to employ untrained teachers that will take charge.
But as the sun sees through the hourglass, each day in this region, a student misses out on an hour worth of education which he will never recover. Fatma Pole, KTN News.
Let's now go back to a story that we had touched on earlier, and as Pastor Mainanganga was being set free in Limuru, news came in that a gang of robbers had also allegedly stripped his current home of valuables, including electronics and other household goods. Police say the gang of 4 jumped over the perimeter wall before cutting window grills to access the house. But KTN journalists who had gone there to follow up on this news were, however, viciously assaulted by 6 men armed with weapons. KTN's Michelle Ngele and cameraman Tom Nyongesa were attacked and the KTN video camera confiscated.
While in custody awaiting a ruling on whether he would be granted bail or not, Pastor Nganga's current residence was broken into by 4 armed men who made away with valuables worth 500,000 shillings. A section of officers probing the robbery have however read mischief and say this could be a ploy to earn public sympathy for the pastor who is facing a murder charge in a Limuru court. The statement recorded by Pastor Nganga's wife indicated that no one was home at the time of the robbery. But when the KTN crew went to the current residence this morning to inquire of the robbery, 6 men from the residence armed with clubs and machetes viciously attacked the journalists before confiscating the KTN video camera, which had footage of the assault.
Beyond the gate kuangalia huko, nikaona watu wanafungua mlango. Kufungua hivi ni kwa mtu wa kwanza akona panga. Wa pili anakuja sijui ilikuwa rungu ama nini, alafu watatu alikuwa kitu kama rungu walitoka more than five guys wakaanza kunifukuza mimi nikakosa njia, alafu mmoja yake akanifikia akanitega nikaanguka. Kuanguka hivyo wakaanza kunipiga hapa huko nyuma, alafu hapo akachukua kamera akarudi hapo nayo huko ndani.
The crew recorded a statement of assault at the Hadi police station in Karen before accompanying the police to the residence. On arrival, only one of the attackers seen here was found and questioned by the police. Some had escaped on foot, while others hid cowardly behind the gate as police had no warrant to enter the residence. Even with the help of police, efforts of the KTN crew to recover the camera proved futile, as the attackers, who claimed to be under the age of 18, said they had to wait for their parents to return the camera to the Hadi police station.
You are waiting for your mother to come and take it.
Mama amesema watatoa baadaye kwa police, so let us give them time.
Journalists from local media houses assembled outside the residence in solidarity with their colleagues as they demanded for justice, but the police left the matter unresolved. Michelle Ngele, KTN News.
To the lovely Amanda, and now guest anchor.
Guest anchor.
Let's see if you can be anchor for real. So this is a story, that's a backup, but we want you to look there.
Goodness.
Introduce yourself and
right.
Take it away.
Hi, I'm Julian Kula. The politics of the so-called sugar deal continue in the capital, Nairobi. But back in the sugar belt of Western Kenya, many farmers have abandoned the cane for other crops. From the tale of two farmers, we tell you why parting with the cane in Western Kenya is not always sweet sorrow.
The love affair between sugarcane and Western Kenya has been a long-standing one, especially after the 1970s. There's hardly a homestead where you'll go and you won't find cane. But this relationship has become bittersweet, with farmers leaving sugarcane for other crops. High noon at Handidi village, Lurambi, Kakamega. For 14 years, 67-year-old Daniel Mangale planted cane on his 3-acre farm, selling most of it to West Kenya Sugar Factory. In his prime, a good harvest would fetch 4,000 shillings per ton, and he would earn 80,000 shillings. Then it dwindled to 2,800 shillings, and then further downward. He has given up and now prides in growing banana, maize, cassava, vegetables, and animal husbandry.
Wengi wameamua kuitoa. Hata mimi nimetoa sehemu nyingine. Na ngojea siku moja nikipata permit nitoe hii, sitarudia mambo ya miwa tena. Ni hasara kwa sababu ikiwa kubwa sana vile uko ndani imelala. Sasa ikilala inafanya ndani ya miwa inakuwa ni haina nini, ndani haijashikana, imewachana. Ni kama pipe ndani. Sasa hiyo haina uzito.
It's been a bumper harvest for 50-year-old Ali Akutopio in Shiro, Butere. He has so much maize, he tells me he isn't sure where he will store all of it. His farm spans 8 acres, an area of variety: maize, banana, rice, pumpkin, which still yields calabashes, soybean, traditional vegetables, beans, sisal, and he also produces biogas on a small scale. But Ali used to plant sugarcane before. He did so well that in 2004, he says, Mumias Sugar Company awarded him for being the most extraordinary farmer in his zone, yielding 145 tons per acre above the set 50. Even decorated, Ali gave up on sugarcane.
Ndio nilikuwa nikipatako pesa kidogo, lakini hata hiyo pesa haikuwa ikinisaidia kwa sababu kwa hiyo eka 1.5 hiyo sasa zingine unaweza patiwa kitu kama 4,000. Hiyo ndio maneno ilinikasirisha, nikafanya nini? Nikang'oa hiyo miwa, nikasema sasa hata vile nafanya bure, nafanya tu kazi bure.
But Ali was wooed back by the plant. Only this time he was wiser in his land tenure, setting apart 1.5 acres instead, with training and support from Agrix ICS that has input and extension support services such as seed and fertilizer. He began to thrive, something many others lack. But why go back to cane?
Ndio sababu nimerudia miwa, kwa sababu miwa wanakuja wana harvest, kama umefanya vizuri wanaweka nini? Wanakuwekea tu pesa kwa account, na wenyewe ndio wanafanya kazi huko. lakini itakuja sasa ufune mara ukongoe inataka uweke nini uweke dawa.
Others in the larger belt want nothing to do with cane completely. What's left of what Daniel uprooted is 22 months old. He says 2 months from now he will uproot it. I ask his grandchildren if they ever wish to be cane farmers. The answer is a growing seasonal trend. Cane, however, is still an integral part of this region's way of life. Families have been sustained by it. There's no one answer to the question of whether this region should turn its back on cane, because every farmer has a different story. Dorcas Wangira, KTN News, Kakamega.
Thank you, Dorcas, for that interesting views there. Well, I'll give Pastor 10 out of 10 because my director says he looks the part and he sounds the part.
Yeah, career change.
Yeah, career change. Up. Group CEO stroke anchor. Right, so we want to take a short break. What do we go next?
Joy is going to be coming up next with the business news.
All right, keep it KTN. Thank you for keeping it KTN. It's time now to take a look at business. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. The Kenya shilling posted marginal gains on the dollar today after the central bank sold 10 billion shillings worth of dollars to bridge the supply shortage and shore up the shilling. The shilling closed the week at 100 shillings 47 cents, marginally stronger than Thursday's close of 103 shillings and 53 cents. Traders, however, say the local unit may come under pressure due to global investor flight into less risky assets caused by worries about the strength of the dollar and the fragile growth in emerging market countries. Locally, the wide current account deficit and scarce tourism receipts due to dwindling visitors' numbers following a spate of attacks by Somali Islamists could add to the shilling's woes. Meanwhile, the central bank is in the market again today to mop up, or was in the market today to mop up the 11 billion shillings, and the bank frequently mops up excess funds from the market, making it expensive for banks to bet against the shilling. The Commercial Bank of Africa has posted a 52% jump in half-year profits to hit at 2.8 billion shillings, supported by growth in interest income, which rose by 26% to 4 billion shillings. And the bank's performance was also supported by the growth of mobile money business in Kenya and Tanzania. KTN's Charles Gitunga caught up with Isaac Oundo, CBA's managing director, to discuss the half-year results.
Thank you, Isaac, for joining us. And the first thing is the half-year numbers that you've just talked about, 2.8 billion profit before tax. You can tell us what drove this growth.
Okay. I think the growth was driven by improvements in our income. Secondly, recoveries which we were able to achieve on some of the old non-performing loans. Yes.
And talking about customer deposits also went up, and also the loan book also grew. You can tell us what you attribute this to, the kind of customers that you are lending to and the ones that are depositing to.
Okay. We lend substantially to the corporate sector, which comprises 70% of our total lending of 104 billion shillings. And the balance of the lending is to the retail sector, which is essentially individuals, including Mshwari, where the net outstanding loans as at June was just around 1.4 billion shillings. But in terms of disbursements for the half year to June was in excess of 20 billion shillings. Yes.
And in terms of customer deposits on Mshwari?
Total customer deposits are 144 billion shillings for the group. Mshwari deposits are just close to 10 billion shillings. Yeah.
And let's talk about your customers through mobile money. Also talking about Empower in Tanzania, there seems to be in multiples when you compare to those in conventional banking. Maybe you can tell us what is driving this and the projections going forward.
Okay. I think that what drives use of mobile banking services is essentially the convenience. The fact that a tool which you would normally use for your day-to-day activities can actually support your banking transaction activities. That is what I attribute the success for what we are doing to. Yes.
And you talked about partnering with a telecommunication company and also going to 2 new markets with them. Sure, you can tell us about that.
I can't unfortunately disclose all the details, but we are partnering with another telecom company outside of Kenya and Tanzania to basically try and replicate the success of M-Shwari into other markets.
Are we talking about Uganda?
We are talking about East Africa.
Okay.
Africa's largest biogas plant is now pumping 2 megawatts to the national grid. Built by Tropical Power, the plant will use 50,000 tons farm waste annually to produce biogas. The 765 million shilling green project has an installed capacity of 2.6 megawatts and plans to minimize pollution by using the waste product from the digester as fertilizer for flower farms in Naivasha. Moreover, the plant will reduce carbon emissions by saving up to 5 million litres of diesel annually that would have been used by ordinary plants. The biogas project is the first of 4-phase plans that will see Tropical Power also construct a 10-megawatt solar power project by 2016. The project will contribute to the government efforts to reduce its reliance on the more expensive thermal power and instead generate an additional 5,000 megawatts mainly from green sources like geothermal, wind and solar.
Economic policy and energy policy of adding more power to our grid.
I think we will see huge improvements in energy efficiency, which reduce energy bills. I think we will see the falling away of subsidies for fossil fuels, which of course distort energy bills. And I think that when those two things are done, renewable energy will actually be able to compete and hold its own.
Sericulture is the practice of rearing worms for production of silk. The skill is fairly new territory in Kenya, but for 31-year-old Timothy Mutugi, this is just a way of life. And now Mutugi wants to teach other farmers the secrets of trade. KTN's senior reporter Karen Derry traveled to Meru County and now brings us that interesting story.
Besides the textbook knowledge we had of silk being produced by worms, no one in our team had ever seen an actual silkworm, let alone understand how this trendy fabric can be associated with unsightly worms. It is for this reason that we found our way to Imenti South, Meru County, to meet the county's only silkworm farmer, Timothy Mutugi. This is where he houses his worms, literally. The house could pass for someone's living quarters. The hygiene has to be top-notch, we are told, or else the mulberry silkworms will not thrive. On these wooden partitions lie about 40,000 worms. They derive their name mulberry silkworms from their only feed, mulberry leaves. Keeping the worms is labor-intensive. One has to ensure that the mulberry leaves that are spread on the partitions are changed every 3 days. It has to be done very carefully so that one does not throw away the tiny worms. Despite the work involved, the returns from silk sales make it a worthwhile venture. On a good month, he is a happy farmer.
Grade A here goes for 1,000. Now if you produce grade B, the price will go lower.
If other farmers in the county could be encouraged to keep the silkworms, then there is a glimmer of hope that the textile industry would be revived. With the ever-fluctuating prices of tea and coffee, Mutugi's new venture could also be emulated by other farmers.
Lazima tugawanye, wengi walime silkworm, wengine waende kwa ng'ombe, wengine waende kwa hata mbuzi.
Well, ordinarily not many people would take to rearing of worms as a business venture, citing that they are somewhat creepy, but he says it is a good business that fetches a tidy amount of profit, and therefore encouraging other people to try their hand in the rearing of the mulberry silkworms. Carol Derry, KTN, Imenti South, Meru County.
And so the Kenya shilling gained a bit of strength, but maybe about 6 cents. But then it is still vulnerable. Let's take a look at how the Kenya shilling did perform against other currencies aside from the US dollar and also the listed companies. And that's it for KTN Business. My name is Joy Doreen Bira. Friday briefing continues. And of course, Pastor Julian is still here with us.
With a full slate of opening rounds of the first day of action at the IAAF World Championships, and that include the 800 meters heats and the 10,000 meters finals. 2:35 Saturday morning will be the time for marathon world record holder Dennis Kimeto, Wilson Kipsang and the Paris Marathon winner Mark Korir to line up for a hotly contested tie that will decide the first medals of the championships. Team Kenya, however, remained optimistic that they're going to have a good outing in Beijing. It is only a few hours left before the first day action of the IAAF World Championship in Beijing 2015 starts. Kenyan quest for gold will start with the marathon title chase at 2:35 Saturday morning, with the world record holder Dennis Kimeto, the man he succeeded Wilson Kipsang, and Paris Marathon winner Mark Korir will take on the streets of Berlin and finish 42.198 kilometers later at the Bird's Nest. The Kenyan lineup will go against defending champion Stephen Kiprotich of Uganda, who has won the past 2 global titles but has underperformed in his appearances in London and New York.
Everybody is a threat because we have guys who can run very well in hot conditions, we have guys who can run very well in cold conditions, so you never know who have prepared the most for this race. So I think for somebody like me, I'll not just keep on watching Dennis only. No, I'll just make sure that I run in a way that can ensure or that can give me a win.
In the 800 meters action in day 1, David Rudisha, who has already got the feel of Bird's Nest, will lead his countrymen Ferguson Rotich and Alfred Kipketer, who will be determined to make it past the heat stages.
This is the most intense area, and well, it's whereby now you know that moment has come, and it's tough. Sometimes you don't feel like talking to anybody, you just have to concentrate, focus on your target.
The only track final of the day will be the 10,000 meters category, the first leg for Mo Farah's double defense. The commanding favorite Farah stands to extend his streak of global victories, but he will line up against Kenya's Geoffrey Kipsang Kamoror, Bedan Karoki and Paul Kipngetich Tanui. The Kenyan swimming team has taken first position in Eastern Africa in the secondary school games in Rwanda. At the same time, Maximila Imali from Mokwa Secondary School successfully defended her 100 meters title, with Moffat Ngari winning the boys' tie. And as Robinson Okenya reports, who has been following those happenings from Rwanda, Kenya currently tops the medals table with 15 gold medals, 18 silvers and 6 bronze medals.
It was a tough day in office for Kenyan secondary schools taking part in athletics in the Brookside East Africa Secondary School Games in Huye, Rwanda. Burundians continue to rule in the long-distance races as Andrew Larot failed to secure gold in the 5,000 men's category. Ndikumwenayo Theory gave a hard time to Kenya's Andrew Larot as the Burundian cruised to victory in a time of 14 minutes 28.6 seconds. Larot finished second.
I was not trained at Kenya until because I'm raced from nationals until when we are coming here. So I come to train here, my first training.
With Margaret Nyerere missing from the 800 meters, Kenyans were dethroned off their favorite race, losing to Uganda in both the boys and girls categories. Kenyans managed third place finish in both races. Maximila Imali, however, put a smile on Kenyan coaches as she successfully defended a 100-meter title in a time of 12.1 seconds. Moffat Ngari from Nyangwa Boys was also at hand to bag a gold in the boys' 100 meters in 10.1 seconds. Mkono High's Okecho Abubarak was second.
It feels so nice. I'm proud. I know my practice has given me what I wanted.
If you do the practice very well, actually you can win the race in easy way.
In swimming, Kenya's dominance could not be overshadowed as the majority of the Kenyan swimmers won gold medals. Ian Gatia, Virginia Okumu, Nyara Mohatia, Andua Marema and Alexandria Crank are among the gold winners of the day. In football, Kobala girls played to a 1-1 draw with Citizen from Uganda. With both teams tied on level points, the teams will have to wait for a coin toss to know who proceeds to the next stage. With Kenya having finished first in swimming with 106 points, all eyes will be out to see how other teams perform in different sports as the competition shifts gears to the climax. Robinson Okenye, KTN Sports, Huye, Rwanda.
And then sadly, we're just about to wind up things here on KTN Friday Briefing, but we still have Pastor Julian Chula in the building. But before we get back to him, let's have a review of our big question tonight. And if you remember, it was on Duale's alleged evidence against former Prime Minister Raila Odinga on sugar debts that he says is owed to some farmers. That was our big question, and we're asking you, what is your opinion? Should he indeed release that evidence or dossier, so to speak? Let me sample one or two messages here. Someone says, I'm Norman from Umoja. Tell Duale to stop lying to the president that he has evidence of Raila. We are still waiting for the list of terrorists. Martin Moses says Duale never addresses issues. His concerns are personal, not solutions to issues that have been raised. Sad, very sad. We thank you so much for your feedback on our big question tonight. We don't take it for granted. Right, and we now want to get some very important thoughts from Pastor Julian about some certain issues, and one of them is politics, a very important issue. What is the way forward? Because what we're seeing about the sugar, so a lot of noise all over the place.
Yeah.
How are we supposed to move on from all this?
I think we need to understand, and maybe I'm going to sound quite general about it. Yeah. The world is evolving. What we're going through, and I think Kenyans, we do have to stop being very ecocentric, just self-centric, self-centered thinking internally. I'm not generalizing that, but the world is changing. The world is shifting. Politics will be politics, right? And I'm glad to see we're getting to more mature politics, because Betty, if I ask you, what was the hottest political story last year? I don't know. We will make so much noise, and tomorrow it's yesterday's story. What's most important is that I think there is something I can say about Kenya. Kenya is moving forward. As a nation, we're moving forward. There's clear change. It's clear sometimes it gets worse before it gets better. That does not mean there's no advancement, right? And we're maturing as a nation. To see a nation that has so much freedom of expression, people can say whatever they want to say about our governments, our political parties, our leaders. There's freedom of expression. Let's use it wisely. But my take on politics and to politicians, what I'll say is this: listen, I think it's time to just be absolutely generational in our thinking. I think it's time to be very functional about, I never start anything without thinking about my children and their children. And I think we need to be deliberate as a country. So if sugarcane time is up, I know there was a time we had a problem with tea picking because machines were coming into play, and we wanted human beings to be the ones continuing. The world is evolving. If we want to feed more than just our country, if we want to move into surplus dimensions, we must accept technology has also shifted and changed. And so if there's the sugarcane thing, it's clear it's politics, right? And I pray that we can move from divisive politics to progressive politics, where we actually are moving on matters that are very clearly progressive on what we want to say.
I like that. And to many people who are watching, especially young people who've been really tweeting about the different issues that you've raised, what is your parting shot to them? Some of them are saying that I've started this business, it's not working, what next for me? Should I give up?
I think as a nation, let me say, let's have hope. Hope is not a strategy, so neither is faith. Faith alone is not a strategy. It's faith plus work. And one thing we have to do as Kenyans, let's work. Let's stop excuses. Actually, if you look at most civilized places, government is purely a facilitator, not the solution maker. When you start seeing in airports where government VIP lounges have been exchanged with business lounges, something is changing, and that tells you that there's actually a shift in the nomenclature of how the nation is behaving. But to young people out there, guess what? Let's focus on a better tomorrow. We can do it. We can do it with good weather, bad weather, with challenges, whether it snows or rains, with a good government or bad government. Let's just focus on doing it. I think the next Uber can come out of Kenya, the next Facebook can come out of Kenya. I've met brilliant young people. Let's not focus on the negative noise. Let's take some time and just let's get something done that's never been done before, and that'll be the motivator for the next 2-3 generations.
I like that.
Yeah.
No better way to end KTN Friday Briefing. I won't even say much. I'm Betty Callow. Have a lovely weekend. And you are?
Julian Kula. Do enjoy your weekend. Thank you for joining Betty and I tonight.
All right, and you can catch him at Papa Center this Sunday along Mombasa Road if you'd like more of what he's been talking about. All right. That was good.
Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Hosting.